If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
What now?
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Grand John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, you know what day it is today?
I have no idea. I'm guessing it's September 29th.
No, it's CBMD3.
Brad, I haven't consumed enough drugs this morning. I'm not Nelly. I don't travel with drugs on my person at all times. I haven't consumed enough drugs to have my brain working. What does that stand for?
CBMD3 stands for Cori Bush Meltdown Day 3.
Or maybe just Cori Bush speaking her truth, Brad. Maybe she's just speaking her truth.
You know, we talk about this all the time, that here we are here in St. Louis, and a lot of stuff is inside baseball. You know, it never goes past the outside of our metro area. But we have been prominently featured on the national news for, 48 hours now because of the Cori Bush continuous meltdown. And the interesting thing where essentially she's calling out all these PACs. What's the PAC that is the PAC that's...
The main one is AIPAC.
And that is the Jewish-backed PAC, correct?
Correct, yeah. The American Israeli, and it's not the traditional political action committee, but it's I'll look that up in the interim here.
Well, she's been calling out, let's be honest, she's been calling out the Jewish people, says she's going to get back at them. And I'm going like, and then she says, I'm sorry, but I find this interesting. Then she says, the press has made her look like a radical. Okay, let's think about this.
Yeah, can you believe that?
Let's think about this. The press has done that. Okay. Yes. I don't think that's quite the case. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is that what's sad about it is, and this is, John's going to dig me on this, but this is my whole concept behind the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. We have this wonderful area out in St. Charles County. Used to be called the Golden Triangle. I call it the Westplex. 8 communities, 400,000 people. If you pulled it out of the ground and stuck it in the middle of Kansas somewhere, it'd be the 47th largest city in the country between Minneapolis and Tulsa. And nobody ever says much about it. But yet when you travel, and this has happened to me, or like on the phone when I'm doing business with people out of other cities and they say, hey, where are you at? Oh, well, I'm in the St. Louis area. Oh my God, are you safe? Like during the Michael Brown thing 10 years ago. Since
2014. It's been about 10 years, hasn't it, Brad?
Yes. People were calling me, asking me, I'm watching the news. Are you okay? Or is your street on fire? Because, and I'd say, nah, it's this one little area up in North County. It's like, it's like West Florissant. It's like a mile stretch, and it goes about 400 feet on each side of West Florissant. And unfortunately, a lot of people always refer to it as all the carnage was in Ferguson, but there was a lot of carnage that was in Delwood as well too. Because if you know, matter of fact, the Delwood City Hall was burnt down. Remember that? They burnt down the Delwood City Hall. Did you know?
I do remember that. Yeah.
Okay. What a way to start the show. That's John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. Every single...
There we go, Brad.
Well, but see, once again, we talk about this stuff, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that today it's all about images, it's all about branding, it's all about, how people feel about you. I mean, look what we're going through right now with the presidential thing. We go from Kamala Harris, a month ago, people are going, oh my God, if Biden decides to step down, who are they going to pick? Are they going to pick Gretchen Wilson, who used to be the country western star? Are they going to pick the guy from California? Well, they're not going to pick Kamala because she couldn't handle it. Well, all of a sudden she's in, and everybody goes, oh my God, she's wonderful, she's wonderful, she's wonderful. Anyway, John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. That's how you spell his name, johncombest.com. He does this thing every single day, every single morning. He puts together a list of all the important stories in the state of Missouri. We started off with this guy right here who tells us us
their stories coming up.
He tells us their stories. Matter of fact, he tells us John's stories. And we start with...
In third place...
Brad, you used to umpire baseball games. You're a longtime baseball fan. What does the phrase wearing the collar mean?
I used to be. I'm not a baseball fan anymore, to be honest with you.
We're not going to get into the
I
whole
could really
Cardinals
care
rant.
less.
That's why I skipped over it. What does the phrase wearing the collar mean?
That you're doing poorly, someone who is batting in a slump, stuff like they call wearing the collar, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So in general, in a game, if you go, say, 0 for 3, you're wearing the collar. You're wearing a big 0 around your neck. Sam Page, St. Louis County executive, was wearing the collar Tuesday night. He went 0 for 3 in local races. Now, I say this ad nauseum, Brad, and I'm sure some people get sick of hearing it, but I generally don't talk about county-level politics because nobody really cares. First, or I shouldn't say that, because I generally don't care. And let's face it, most listeners to our show are focused on state-level politics and don't care too much about county stuff. But it's important to note this because the highest-profile race involved the Democrat state representative from Florissant. We've covered this before, Brad. Gretchen Bangert was essentially offered a job to get out of the Democratic primary so that one of Sam Page's hand-picked candidates could be elected to the St. Louis County Council. There was a vacancy. Or excuse me, I should say there was an open seat. Anyway, the state representative, Gretchen Bangert, declined what was essentially a job offer. She could have had a nice job, and I'm sure checked out of the office no later than 4:59. But unfortunately, Brad, she actually won election. She defeated Sam Page's preferred candidate in that race. And now, sadly, Gretchen Bangert will have to serve on the St. Louis County Council. Can you believe that, Brad? She could have had a nice job sitting behind a desk, not really doing much work. And instead, now she's got to go to county council meetings. So condolences to Gretchen Bangert for actually winning this election.
And they don't make much money as a county council person, do they? It's
yeah,
minimal.
I think it's a negligible. I think it's probably like you're definitely losing money.
Right. And she probably was going to make 6 figures working for the county with the job offer, I would imagine, don't you think?
Yeah. I think it would have been an easy 6 figures for her in that regard.
Oh, well, yeah, he didn't do too well. He's only got one ally left. Isn't that the deal?
That's correct. Yeah, a woman named Lisa Clancy, who is generally, I think it's conservative to say that she is a supportive voice on the council. So, and then the other two, we should also mention the other 2 races. There's a woman named Shalonda Webb, who is an incumbent. She was challenged by a Page candidate, a former state representative named Rochelle Walton Gray. And then one of Sam Page's Republican allies, he has a strong Republican ally named Ernie Tracus. So that was Sam Page's preferred candidate in the Republican primary. And that Republican primary candidate, the incumbent, lost. So, yeah, it's the field for next year isn't looking good for Sam Page. Of course, he'll likely be challenged by at least one strong Democrat candidate in the Democratic primary in 2026.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to worry about it because he just does whatever he wants. He never asks for county approval. He just says, I want to do this. I was in St. Louis County yesterday. Don't get me on my rant with Clayton. I have a Clayton rant that I want to give later. Can I give my Clayton rant?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
I'd love to hear it.
Well, we'll talk about it later. Okay, well, let's go on to number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
A whole lot of post-election analysis going on, Brad, that dominates my website today. One piece I would point out, though, that's intriguing is we've heard so much in the last 3 legislative sessions about what was originally called the Senate Conservative Caucus, and then it was called then it was just called the Freedom Caucus. So the Columbia Missourian, a gentleman named Ezra Bitterman, who's a really good reporter, we've talked about him before at the Columbia Missourian, he talked about the implications for the Freedom Caucus based on these primary elections. And it was a pretty good day, I think you would say, for the Freedom Caucus on Election Day. Denny Hoskins, I think, is the flagship victory. Member of the Freedom Caucus, elected statewide. He certainly benefited from the strength of Bill Eigel. But Denny Hoskins stands on his own 2 feet. He ran his own campaign and was elected. The curious quote that I'll read to you here, Brad, is from Jim Lemke, former state senator who was an organizer. And his quote about, other groups and outside PACs got involved and Senate leadership got involved in some of these primaries. And here's what Jim Lemke says. I don't think that he's talking about how leadership was working against Freedom Caucus candidates. He said, I don't think the stuff that they did will be forgotten. So there's going to have to be an olive branch put out to the conservatives if leadership wants to accomplish conservative things. So once again, Brad, if you were expecting some sort of kumbaya moment after the primaries or a kumbaya moment in January, not likely to happen unless, according to Jim Lemke, Senate leadership like Senator Cindy O'Loughlin reaches out to the conservative caucus. So it was a mixed bag. Not all Freedom candidates, not all potential members of the Senate Freedom Caucus were victorious in their primary elections. So it was really a mixed bag for everybody.
You know, I feel so sad about this. This here we go again. It's like, I need to get that and move it over here. I've got it in the other studio in my hotkeys. The Rodney King. Why can't we all just get along? I don't understand this. You know, it's like infighting, and to the point where you don't see that. Maybe I'm naive. You just don't see it that much on the Democratic side, do you? I mean, do you see this on the Democratic side? Is there like maybe like on the national level in the Congress, we've got like the squad who are like the super left winger, congressional people. But I mean, it's like, okay, we're in one party. It's like one family, but yet you have over on the left side.
And Brad, you bring up a great point. And if folks are listening to this, they can go back 4 minutes to my first item when I talked about the St. Louis County executive, a Democrat, campaigning against other Democrats in Democratic primaries in Democrat-run St. Louis County. So yes, Brad, if folks go back a whole 4 minutes, they can hear about Democrats taking each other on.
Well, but you don't have a Democratic Freedom Caucus in the state of Missouri, do you? Do you have like a bunch of, we want tampon machines in the men's bathroom. That's what we want.
In the state legislature, no. But just like you don't have a Republican Freedom Caucus on the St. Louis County Council, do you?
Well, because they don't have any Republicans. They're all Democrats.
They do have Republicans. But you see my point, Brad. Yes. And then, Brad, actually, if you go a few miles east into St. Louis City, you'll see 3 candidates for mayor. And you'll see a progressive faction and you'll see a less progressive faction. And all Democrats do in St. Louis City. And as we pointed out, probably between 6 to 10 different times on the show, Missouri in the 1990s had a great deal of factionalism in the Democratic Party because you had different factions. You had labor, you had black Democrats, you had rural Democrats. And they tore each other apart in the Democratic caucus.
See, John,
so,
you can tell John is an ex-comms guy because he still has that comms thing. Because what John is doing right now, what you may not realize is, John is essentially eviscerating me, excoriating me, and telling everybody I'm FOS about that I don't know what I'm talking about, right? That's what John
That is absolutely not it. And let's go back to what I think is a great idea, which is the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. And Brad, this is a misconception. The idea that I don't think it's a great idea. I do think it's a great idea. And I think that what that area should do is everything that you've described in here and elevating itself above the morass that is happening. I agree with you, Brad.
Exactly. It's to the point where it's like, hey, that's not us.
I know. And you know what? And I don't know how it's going to shake out. But the idea of that sort of organization, I know you've been working on them for a while. The man who is the MC of incoming Governor Mike Kehoe's victory party. Do you know who MC'd that, Brad?
Was it Mike Elam?
It was Mike Elam, yeah. So he has a chance to be the next county executive. And you have a great relationship with him. And I think that would be, now that's 2 years away. And let's be clear, Brad. The only time, and I'm done doing this, by the way. I've decided I've come to peace with a lot of things. But one of them is my original qualm about you doing Westplex Chamber was that it was just another thing to take away from the radio station. But that's beyond the scope of my circle of care right now. Anyway, so Brad, your point was great. Republicans are the only ones that fight amongst themselves. But you can go back to story number 3 and hear Democrats.
Well, now, hold on a minute, John. Let me take something back. You just said, okay, you say that it's a waste of my time to try to do the Westplex. I didn't say
that. Did I use the phrase "waste of your time"?
I think you implicated that. Okay,
I didn't implicate it. You're not a mind reader. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, but the situation is, let's talk about real estate. Okay, if somebody came along and said, you know what? I mean, look what Paul McKee did. He buys up all this property in North City secretly. He buys up all this property. Okay, he becomes an aggregator, as they call it. Okay, he buys up all this property, and then all of a sudden he comes out. We're going to build this new thing in North City. So in other words, all of a sudden. People go from, oh my God, North City, you don't want to go there without Kevlar underwear, and you want to have bulletproof Lexan windows in your car. It's terrible. And all of a sudden, he comes and turns it around and goes, hey, we're going to build this new multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar government, whatever it is, a NAV center, whatever the thing they're building. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, okay? So all of a sudden, the properties become much more valuable, okay? Same situation. If all of a sudden somebody came along and let's say Elon Musk came along and said, you know what, I think it's bad what happened in North City. I'm going to come in, I'm going to completely revitalize North City, and we're going to make this the show place that it was back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Okay. All of a sudden, houses that today you could probably buy for, $40,000-$50,000 are now $300,000-$500,000. It's like my example all the time. And don't get me going on this because I got a whole rant about real estate agents. It's like the Kirkwood, Webster Groves area. Okay, someone I know, one of their family members just bought a house in Kirkwood, $350,000. There's a whole crazy story behind that. And I said to him, I go, that house was built, when that house was new, that was urban sprawl, that was a $5,000 house. And they went, what? I go back and look in history. Kirkwood and Webster were urban sprawl, right? Am I kidding about that?
Yeah, they absolutely were. You're right about that, Brad.
And they were, quite honestly, cheap little houses. I have another friend of mine who's enamored with that area and is always looking at houses, and I give this person grief all the time. I call the houses there CLHs. You know what CLHs are?
No, I don't.
Crappy little houses. They're crappy little houses.
Oh.
And yet, oh my God, I want to live in Kirkwood. Okay, fine.
I think the best way, though, if you're going to annoy them, is if somebody lives in Webster, tell them they live in Kirkwood and vice versa. When we all know, Brad, the only place to live out there is Meacham Park. It's the only place I would go.
The crazy
thing.
If
I got to buy a dime bag or I got to buy 4 pills of ecstasy, the only place I'm going to go is Meacham Park.
John, the crazy thing about that is I've been trying to buy property there. You're making fun of it. Okay, time for number one.
Wow. Okay.
Literally been trying to buy property in Meacham Park, but nobody believes me when I say that. I've been trying to do it.
The number one.
Here we go. Number one.
If you read one story today that I have up on johnconbest.com, read the top link. It's Jason Rosenbaum's piece, 7 takeaways from Missouri's historic and sometimes surprising primary election. Jason does, before an election, he'll do, hey, here's the 7 things to look out for. Here's the 7 things to watch. And then afterwards, Jason does a follow-up piece where he answers those questions and he makes observations. Brad, literally, I think everything that we've touched on in the last couple weeks, Jason talks about in here. So he talks about Cori Bush. He talks about the fallout there. He talks about the Democrat governor's primary. The final piece, which I particularly enjoy, talks about Denny Hoskins' victory in the Secretary of State's race because Jason asked, what percentage will the winner of the GOP primary for Secretary of State get? Now, Brad, I would have guessed that the winner was probably going to be clocking in around 20% because you had so many candidates. But again, Denny Hoskins got 24% of the vote. I say that it's one of my favorite stories because the media, and that's, the trademark liberal media, had a field day with Denny Hoskins saying that we got to rely on paper ballots. There are problems in our elections. And Democrats were like, no, there's not. There's nothing we can do to improve our elections except make it easier for dead people to vote. And now we're going to see with Denny Hoskins as Secretary of State, we're going to see what Denny can do to make the election systems better. And liberals and the media are going to lose their stuff, Brad. It's going to be fantastic. Denny Hoskins is uniquely equipped to face these challenges and to face this criticism. And I can't wait to see it come January.
Do you think he's going to do more than Jay Ashcroft did?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And, it's tempting. I had a bunch of punchlines, Brad, that I would have delivered like if Jay had won the election. But it's kind of hard to kick Jay. To answer your question, I think Denny's going to keep it even better, Brad, for when you make your semi-annual trips to the Secretary of State's office to the old Kirkpatrick building. I think Denny's going to make it an even better experience for you.
Well, you know what? He would make me feel so much better than when I rode that elevator up to the third floor where the Secretary of State's office is. And they have that glass elevator. You look out over the library where actually somebody was actually in the library doing something rather than always being deserted. I go, does anybody ever go into this stupid library? And the answer to that question is no, they don't. Don't ask me why. I don't get it.
Well, I know why, because the only place libraries are packed around here is Meacham Park. But then you got this white guy trying to come in and buy all the property. He's starting this whole God Squad thing. And so it's going to be the center of the Meacham Park Chamber of Commerce, by the way.
And by the way, couple good calls yesterday on the I'm sorry line. Once again,
nice.
this is past.
Are you going to leave a message apologizing to me for suggesting I was besmirching the Westplex Chamber of Commerce?
Pastor Brad with the God Squad Church, and people don't believe that I'm serious about this. GodSquad.cloud. Go check it out. We have our streaming channel where I'm competing with Joy 99. I have 2 lines. First off, if you're having some issues and you need someone to pray for you, I will pray for you. 25 God Squad. That's the line. 25 God Squad. And if you've done something that you're not happy about and you'd like to apologize to someone, something that's been bothering you, want to get it off your chest, as I say, the 2 hardest words in the English language to come out of most people's mouths are I'm sorry. You can dial 557 I'm sorry, 557 IMSORRY. And once again, there's a good one on there, and unfortunately, there's actually several on there, but there's a good one on there which I could use on the air, but I don't have permission, so otherwise I won't use it. Because anyway, the 557 I'm sorry and 25 God Squad are the numbers you need. Okay, are you ready for a break, John?
I am.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?